Welcome back to campus here. Classes in session at the Apartment Academy, the multifamily industry's only operations-focused podcast and your Institute of Higher NOI. I'm your host, the Dean of the Apartment Academy, Daniel Cunningham. Today's guest lecturer is Amanda Lingenfelser, who is training and recruiting manager at Confluence Communities. And this is a favorite subject of mine because training is so important and so key to great property operations. And Amanda's got some great suggestions for things to help you to recruit, train, and retain, which was the theme of today's episode. Here she comes. Hello, Professor Lingenfelser. Welcome to the virtual hallowed halls of academia here at the Apartment Academy. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Daniel. I'm excited to be here.
Cool. Well, we always like to start off with a little context of how you came to be involved in the industry, sort of the arc of your career. Tell us a little about who you are and how you came to be involved in multifamily.
Yeah, I'd love to. So I had a little bit of an unusual start. I actually, straight out of high school, had a friend's mom who was in the business, and she said, I think you'd be great at this. Go to Real Estate Personnel and see what they can do. So I started out at a temp agency, and they placed me at a community. I actually wasn't even 18 yet, so I couldn't go on tour. I could only help with lease files and doing admin things. But the day I turned 18, they said, go on tour, little birdie. I had no idea even what that meant. So I started walking around buildings and then signing leases. So that was my start into the business. Very kind of common. Most people fall in just like that.
That's right. It's true. It's very true. And today, what's your role at Confluence Companies?
Yes. So today I am the training and recruiting manager. So I spend a lot of my time seeking out new talent and training them and showing them how to be great in multifamily.
So it's such a key role that I don't think people from outside the industry really understand. And it's a role that you have to have some scale to be able to afford the luxury of an Amanda at the corporate level, somebody who can really do all this. And without an Amanda, I think companies really struggle. Look, I can speak from personal experience. I ran a multifamily third-party management company where we had upwards of about 5,000 units and still not enough overhead to really afford an Amanda. And it's painful. The recruiting and the training and all that stuff is a big part of this. But what I'd like to get focused on is we always say, if you've watched any of these episodes, it comes up time after time. This is a people business. Both we are dealing with people. Our currency is people. Like we're trying to connect with people, get them to live at our homes, and then internally, it's a people business. Like we don't succeed unless the people are good and the people are well trained and all that. And it is the most difficult thing. Like the leasing part and the accounting part and even like the legal bits that interspersed with fair housing and understanding, that is all easy. We'll just say easy compared to the managing people part. So, right. So let's start there. Let's talk about why. And there are a number of categories of what's difficult. It's difficult to recruit. It was difficult to train, difficult to retain. Let's start with the recruiting piece first. Why is it so difficult to get people to come into this industry?
Well, number one, I think it's a lack of knowledge. I think there are so many people out there who don't even consider that this is a career path. As I stated, and as most people in the industry will claim, that we all fell into the business. We didn't go out seeking to be leasing consultants. We didn't go out seeking to be property managers. We just fell into that. So I think there's a lack of awareness to just job seekers that this is a market that is a career path in adults. It can be very lucrative. And it's not linear. That's the cool thing. I feel like 10, 20 years ago, it was kind of linear. Now it's not. There's so many different directions you can take your career. You can start in leasing and end up on development. You can be a property manager and then change your mind and go into marketing. So you can do whatever you want to do, but it's a lack of awareness. So it's just more so getting people to understand what we do, why it's important, and how it can be a benefit to them as an employee.
Yeah, we've had people on here at the academy who were leasing agents who are now directors of operations, right? And there are careers in the director of operations, SVP of operations echelons who are are making $200,000 a year or more. So it definitely can be lucrative, and it's certainly an industry that promotes from within whenever they possibly can. In fact, if you're bright and sharp and motivated, you will quickly be plucked up into more senior roles. But given all of that, it's still hard to find folks. So is this how does it how does somebody at within a company level, how do you affect the fact that there is lack of awareness in the industry? You're not running the NAA, you're not running NMHC, right? I don't. Maybe you have some suggestions for them, which would be great if you want to talk about that a little bit. But what can you really do about that? Like, what can you do to overcome the fact that there's no real great awareness or understanding or appreciation of the potential of being in this business?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things you can do. So, what I just did personally was honestly sitting fed up with all of the resumes coming through that just didn't seem appealing. They didn't have transferable skills. So I had to sit and think to myself, like, people are obviously going to work, and they're not going to work where I'm working. So where are they going? So I did what I called boots on the ground recruiting, and I went to the local mall. I know that sounds
Ah,
crazy, but
oh
people
no,
are in
this is the old
retail.
Nordstrom story, right?
Yeah,
Yes, go on.
yeah.
Yes, I love it.
So I went to our local mall, and I popped into every store that you could imagine, a well dressed lady going to. And I hardly was spoken to. I mean, people are in these stores, and I'm having, I have items in my hand I'm looking to purchase, and I'm still not being spoken to. And I'm just blown away by the lack of confidence, the lack of awareness, the lack of desire to help people. And so I was feeling a little defeated, honestly. And I was like, maybe this is why people aren't coming here, because it requires you have to do a lot of work. But I went into the last store, Daniel. I went into the very last store, and I'm not going to tell you which one because I can't encourage the industry to go poach everybody from this store. That would be so mean of me. But I went into this last store, and as soon as I walked in, the young lady at the counter said, "I love your shoes." And in my mind, I said, "You have a new job." So I just kind of talked to her, like, how did you get into retail? What do you love about retail? And as I was talking to her, she's just telling me that she loves helping people. And at the essence, isn't that what we do? Is just help people? So I just kind of conversed with her a little. I bought a pair of sunglasses to make my trip to her store look real. She does know now that I was shopping for her and not for items. But, I think as people in the industry, we have to take it into our own hands, and we can't sit back and just hope that people find us and hope that our on-site teams are talking about how great their jobs are. Like, let's go out and let's tell people how wonderful multifamily is. Let's go out to hospitality, retail, restaurants, food and beverage. Let's find the people, because there are good people and they just don't know that they can do this instead.
I should clarify to preserve the integrity of what you said, which is I don't want to encourage the Nordstrom story I heard is not because you and I talked about that. So I'm not saying that's who the secret store was. I just in the past have heard people say like, we get people from Nordstrom because they're just, and I've never actually, I didn't know if that was just, a fairy tale within the multifamily industry, or anybody actually went out and did that. But here you are.
I did it. It wasn't Nordstrom. I will say that. It was not Nordstrom. Nordstrom, I didn't try to poach your people. Yeah, so it wasn't Nordstrom, but there are other good retailers. And if you think about brands out there that do have great training, let's say Chick-fil-A, right? We all know we're going to go to Chick-fil-A and we will get great service, will we not? You will get a pleasant person speaking to you. They will say my pleasure, and you will feel like you had the best experience at Chick-fil-A. How does Chick-fil-A attract their talent? What are we doing that's not doing the same thing? Branding the multifamily business.
So let's move to the training part. So you've got them, and now there is a lot to do in multifamily as a property manager. In fact, this sort of fits kind of in in my other world, my other hat, where I'm CEO of Leonardo 24/7. We talk about how people are supposed to be experts in marketing and leasing and real estate law and part-time psychologists and you know part-time family law. I don't, but um, uh, it's a lot to expect people to know. Let's talk a little bit about how do you form an effective training program? How do you maintain that training in the field? People are really busy. Talk a little about your strategy on that front. What have you learned?
Yeah, absolutely. Number one, set the expectations. When I hire a new leasing consultant, I tell them immediately that I pretty much expect them to spend 12 months learning how to become an expert at leasing, because there are so many little nuances that make up your role, and you won't know it until you have to do it. So you may be trucking along for 6 months and all of a sudden you have a whole new experience happen, and now you have to learn how to handle that experience. So I just kind of tell people to give it a year to learn all of the things that really comprise the leasing role for starters. And then with training, it's you have to have multiple hands in the training pot. So we do individual on-site training. I will go sit with team members for a half a day, and we'll just kind of really individualize the training to what they need. What are you working on? Where are you at? Where are you struggling? And we'll tailor our training from there. We do group trainings, so we kind of like cohorts. People who are in similar roles will show up and do a training together so they can lean on each other. And then we have a really great mentor program. So after their first week, they get assigned a mentor who's in their same role, and that person is their go-to for the next 60 days to help them learn all the things about their role. So it's really just making sure that you're hitting all the bases and not just assuming that like one type of training will cover everybody.
Wow, that's a lot. Uh, Especially to the extent that you're going on site and training one on one. It's amazing to have a resource like that in a company like Confluence. Do you tell me how much of the training burden is borne by LMS programs that have pre-built, like there are a number of them out there. How much of the first 30 to 60 days of training is performed in that kind of scenario?
Yeah, there's a good chunk. I would say 15 to 20% of their training is going to be in a learning system, whether that's online in Edge to Learn Grace Hill, where they're learning about processes, procedures, conflict resolution, or if it's in Yardi Aspire, learning how to operate in Yardi, on all of the processes and the flows, CRMQ, how to generate a lease, all of those things. So there's a good chunk of it in the first 30 to 60 days that is online and learning management system.
I got to be honest, man, that's a lot less than I expected to hear you say. That means way more of the burden is on you and your team to. Okay, so outside of like the Yardi Aspire and the Edge to Learn, has your company created a lot of training stuff that is separate than that they go through, that's online or video training?
Not for us. We're still pretty small. So Confluence is a builder developer, and then we created a management company out of that. So our management company is only about 8 years old, and we're only here in Colorado. So we're local to the Colorado market, which is why I get to go do one-on-one on-site training, because my team is all right here. But we haven't created a lot of learning management systems online. I do create a lot of content, and I like to deliver it in person.
So, and can you help give us some scale, by the way, of the number of properties under management, so people can understand like kind of the ratio of units to Amanda's.
Yes, definitely. So back in October, we actually sold our largest asset, and we had about 1,400 units at that point. We're down to just under 1,000. 5 properties. So we have a total of like 35 on-site team members between maintenance and office. And we currently have 3 projects under development and 3 other projects in our pipeline. So really by 2027, as far as unit size and employee count, will be about double what we are today.
Okay, so that is an amazing. I have to say that to have a resource, to have an Amanda at 1,400 years is pretty amazing. It's a serious commitment from that company. So does the development company have a different name?
No, we're Confluence Companies. Under that umbrella is Confluence Builders, Confluence Communities.
So serious commitment from Confluence Communities here to put an Amanda at the disposal of 1,400 units. My guess is that you don't normally see a director of training of your stature show up 5,000 units plus. I would say it's more typical. Yeah, yeah. So hats off to Confluence Communities for making that commitment, because it is so key to a great team, great success. So um, that scale probably allows you to do a lot of this stuff in training.
It does. Yeah, we're very lucky in that.
That may not be at scale. You might not be able to do that, but let's talk more though about the resources. So you've got stuff you're doing in person. You've got stuff that's being done through maybe an LMS of some sort. Um, what is what's the frequency that beyond the first 30 or 60 days that you have to keep revisiting training of some sort throughout the year?
Yeah. So this year for 2024, I actually launched a new training initiative, which would be to meet with every cohort group. So the leasing consultants, the service technicians, the assistant managers, meet with them once per year. So each of them get kind of a dedicated quarter where they will have a training that is just for them. So this quarter is our service technicians, and they will get an instructor-led HVAC training. Um, so yeah, we really want to make sure that we're dedicating that development, that ongoing development. So beyond that first 30 to 60 days, they will see me in person for an actual training once per year.
Is a lot of what you're delivering in person that's bespoke to your company? Here's what I'm drilling it down at, because there a lot of our listeners, people, the attendees here at the Academy, our student body, we are targeting other operators, people that are interested in running their own companies. And what I'm trying to drill down to is, like, how can other companies emulate what you're doing? Like, where, maybe if they don't even have an Amanda, right, to create this material for them, where can they, the stuff that you're creating bespoke for you, what is that? How can people get to that information if they don't have somebody full-time like you thinking about this? How can you create an effective training organization if you don't have a director of training? Can it be done? Can you effectively train people without somebody like you? Or is it just a different echelon? Like, look, you're just not going to be as good as us, right? You will be okay, but you're not going to be great.
Yeah, I think if you are in a company and you don't have the capacity to have a dedicated training specialist, either contract one, because there are people out there like myself who the material that I generate comes from necessity. It's we've had an experience or we've learned that somebody doesn't know or understand something, and we realize and recognize that we need to provide them with tools to be successful. And then I take the knowledge I have and I create tools and deploy them. There will be people out there like myself who want to, maybe it's a community manager who works for a company that doesn't have training, but they really love to train other people, and they've already created material and content that helps their teams on site. So for those companies, like, don't be afraid to ask, just put it out there. Who wants to help us develop training material? Put them on a contract basis, get the material, and then figure out how to deliver it. Or tap into your local apartment association and send your teams to every dang learning event that you can. If you don't have an on-site dedicated team, you should make the investment to send your team off-site to learn.
Love it. Great suggestion. Okay, I want to move to the third kind of challenge then on the personnel side, which is retain. And there's a lot of interesting things happening right now. And sometimes I bring this subject up, I just get crickets because people don't want to talk about it. But since COVID, I feel like, I think others would agree, that the industry has experienced a dearth of service technicians, probably most acutely, somewhat less, but still a meaningful impact to property managers, assistant managers. There are now alternatives for people to do this, earn similar kinds of salaries and wages from home without a lot of the stress that comes with a career like this. And we haven't touched on any of that stuff yet, but maybe this is the time to do so. So there's talk about, hey, how do we do more with less? How do we retain the people that we have? How do we become more efficient by some people are talking about centralizing maintenance or centralizing leasing or any of this kind of thing. So let's talk first about just the retention piece. It's a difficult business. I guess I just sort of talked about it. It is a difficult business for a number of reasons. I have said in the show before that if you're the best property manager that ever walked the earth, somebody's probably yelling at you right now because you're doing something that somebody doesn't like. You're evicting somebody, or you're telling them that their dog breed is not the right breed. Like, doing your job in this context sometimes involves making people very angry and or sad, and it's hard. There's a mental toll this takes. How do you address that? How do you keep people energized? How do you retain them? And are you looking at any strategies to sort of, bridge maybe a resource gap that we're now experiencing?
Yeah, I mean, I will agree with you. Retention is definitely very challenging, especially for a company like Confluence where we're small. So we don't always have the opportunity for people to grow when they're ready to grow. But I think this is really a two-way street. I don't think that it's only on the teams. I think it's also on the job seeker to know what they are looking for and making sure that they're choosing a job, a role, a company, and benefits that really match what they want in their lives. Um, so for us, we really invest in our team members. So that does come a lot with having a me. We get to pour into them so much, and it's something that maybe they haven't received in other roles or other companies. And for us, we find that really helps, because when people feel like they're constantly learning and being challenged and rewarded and recognized, and we know this, like anybody in the business knows, your people are only staying if they feel really good, because it is a stressful business. Another thing, especially for the newbies to the industry, I just encourage them. We have an incredibly generous PTO policy. And just take your PTO. Take your PTO. That's what it's there for. You have it. Use it. If you have EAP benefits, if you, just have a coworker who you can talk to, don't let it eat you up. Let that stuff out. Take your mental days. Take your breaks, because it is not easy to be on site and dealing with people day in and day out.
True words were never spoken. So, given that, at the scale the Confluence is at right now, are you yet having to wrestle with kind of like the notion that maybe you have to centralize leasing or maintenance or anything like that yet? Have you had to wrestle with that yet, given this growing problem that others are having recruiting, and or is that not affected yet?
Not yet. Luckily, we're not having to centralize, which is great. Um, we are going to bring in the new version of Yardi once it's ready to roll out, and it does have a chat bot that kind of helps with the front end leasing and really kind of filters out the queue and the leads up into the point where they need to be contacted by a human. So that is the only thing we're going to do to kind of help our teams, and then just making sure that all of our documents can be electronically signed. We're kind of in a hybrid thing right now where some things can be signed electronic and some cannot. So just bringing that all the way together as a convenience for our teams and our residents.
Um, okay. Last bit of advice you have for folks that are listening. If there's one thing that you think people, what is the most wonderful thing about being in this industry that you think people don't know?
That you can absolutely do anything you want to do. And I'm not trying to sound like, I'm talking to my 14-year-old son here, but truly multifamily can give you a life that you never dreamed of. 17-year-old me did not go into that leasing office thinking that one day I would be training people on how to do leasing. So if you have a passion, if you love numbers, if you love people, if you love marketing, if you love development, there is a place for you in multifamily. Don't be afraid to look for it. Don't be afraid to put your name out there, and just get connected with people, because we're looking for you. I promise we're looking for you.
And if people want to look for you because of the great attention that you give, how do they reach out to you, man, and say they want to come work for Confluence Companies?
Yeah, connect with me on LinkedIn, please. I would love to build my network. You can always see our open available roles on our website, www.confluenceco.com. I love to just encourage people to be great in this business. So even if you just want somebody in your corner rooting you on, I'm happy to be there.
Well, Amanda, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing some of these insights with the collegiate body here at the Apartment Academy. What you do is probably underappreciated, I would say, and not easy. So, okay, good. Generally, people don't appreciate the key role that having somebody who can spearhead training plays in a successful operations organization. So, and again,
Yeah. Love your trainers. Be nice to them. They're out there really having your best interests in mind.
they are the biggest cheerleaders in the industry for sure. They have your back. Yes, absolutely. I love that you touched on the mental health piece of this. I think that's really a great, probably maybe the most important takeaway from today is for other folks in your position to continue to encourage people to take advantage of those resources. Thank you for sharing that.
Yes. Yes. Thank you so much for having me. Thanks for all you do. Thank you for educating everybody in the business. This has been so great. Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us at this week's episode of the Apartment Academy podcast. The Apartment Academy is a production of Leonardo 24/7, the industry's leader in multifamily operations and maintenance software. At Apartment Academy, we realize the hard work that goes into property management and the stress that comes along with it. Leonardo 24/7 takes the guesswork out of your team's day-to-day by providing customized daily guidance on tasks,